Hello, my name is Asher McKenna, and I want to talk to you about how I organized my senior thesis. A little bit of backstory on my senior thesis. I wrote my senior thesis about using visual arts in churches. More specifically, how using lighting in churches can help someone's worship experience, whether it harms or aids in their worship experience. So I wanted to dive into the specifics of this and whether lighting has any effect. I work at a church. It's a little bit of a larger church, and we use lighting kind of what you'd see in a concert, so it's not really a traditional church. I wanted to kind of explore this because it was my job, so I also had to come up with a good way to organize my data because I had a couple different ways I got my sources from. One of the ways I got my sources was from I polled people. So I basically had a link on Instagram to a Google form, and I polled 200 people what they experienced when worshiping, whether they went to a bigger church, whether they went to a more traditional church or a more contemporary church, and how those experiences were. I also polled people on how colors affect emotion, because I figured if colors affect someone's emotion, then maybe they do in worship also with lighting. And so I kind of wanted to explore that. So I did a poll with 200 people, and I organized that data by basically just making a bunch of data charts. I didn't really take people's personal information or anything that they said. I more or less took a bunch of the data from that poll and made some charts and put that in my senior thesis. For my sources, I had around 25 sources. Some of them were interviews, some of them were books, some were just online resources and websites that I found. For my interviews, the way I organized those was I did them over Zoom because then I could record them. And when I record them, then it was a little bit easier to go back through them. And if I forgot something, I didn't have to make a big deal about it because I could focus on interviewing that person. If I thought they said something important, I would write a timestamp down of when they said it, and I would throw it in a Google Sheet during the interview. And that just kind of made it easier to remember. So Zoom is a big way because then you can record it. As for my books and online websites I used, I would go through and highlight them, whether it be a digital or physical copy. I'll go through and highlight those and then throw them into a Google Sheet with where I found them in the book or article so that it would be easier to put in my bibliography, and also who the author was and the date it was created, so I figure out what was the most relevant sources I had to make sure I used those. Any good quotes I found, I would then throw them into this Google Sheet, and it was an easy way to organize my data because Google Sheets make it easy to search for stuff. They just make it super easy to lay out your data and have it organized. So I love that way for organizing all of my sources and quotes. I think the biggest thing to help with writing your senior thesis is to just find time to sit down and do it. It may sound silly. Don't procrastinate it and wait till the last second to get it done. Sit down and do it when you have time. Just follow what's in the guide and make sure you're doing each of those steps. And if you ever get behind, then just catch back up. Make sure you're staying on top of reading your sources, and then just making sure you're organizing that and throwing it into some sort, whether that's note cards. For me, I'm more of a tech person, and so throwing it into a sheet or a Google Doc made way more sense to me because it's easier to find, easier to organize. If you have a computer, there is a find feature on it that helps you search a website or even a Google Sheet or Google Doc. So if you use that, that makes it easier to find keywords. So maybe for me, mine was on lighting and worship, and so I would search an online book and look for those terms, and then it was a lot easier to find quotes because I didn't have to spend an hour or two reading the entire book. And if you've chosen a topic that you actually enjoy and find interesting, then it's really easy getting to the word count. It may sound like a super long essay, but if you actually thoroughly enjoy what you've chosen and find something interesting about it, then it's super easy. Make sure that when you're writing it, you have a good outline, have all your quotes in your outline so then you're not scrambling to find quotes while you're writing it. So when you're writing it, it should be the easiest part because you've already done all the work and the research. You've put all the effort into finding the articles, you put all the effort into reading it. Now you're just putting your thoughts on paper.